Welcome to Ensuring Success. We are live from AMS Pictures in Dallas, Texas. I'm Gail Perry, CPA and Editor-in-Chief of CPA Practice Advisor. And we are here in the middle of our day. We hope all of you have been enjoying the sessions we've done so far. If you're just joining us, welcome. This session is on the shared economy and its impact on team building and talent development. And I can guarantee you it's going to be a super session. But before we get started, I want to do a quick shout out to the sponsors of Ensuring Success. We would like to thank CPA.com, eFileForBusiness.com, Intuit ProConnect, Peisner Johnson, ReceiptBank, Sage, Xero, Avalara, Boomer Consulting, and Canopy. In particular, this session is sponsored by ReceiptBank, and so we would like to thank them in particular for helping us make this session the success we know it's going to be. For those of you who have not been in our earlier sessions, I just want to explain real briefly how the CPE works. So we will give 3 CPE codes during the session. They'll be displayed at the bottom of your screen. I'll give you a shout out to each one so that you can make sure you write it down. You need to write down all 3 of the codes. Each code is a 3-digit number, so there'll be 9 digits altogether. And at the end of the day, you'll go to the top of your screen where it says Get Your CE/CPE Credit. And when you click that tab, you'll see a list of all the sessions, and you can enter the codes for all the sessions that you attended today, and that's how you'll get your CPE certificates. Also, you can reach us throughout the day via social media. We're on Twitter with the hashtag DecemberCPE. We're on email at info@ensuringsuccess.com. And we're on Facebook on the CPA Practice Advisor Facebook page. So feel free to connect with us there. And then also, we are using a feature called Slido. It's slido.com. And we hope you'll go to that and log in. You log in with the hashtag DecemberCPE. So it's slido.com, hashtag DecemberCPE, and that's where we're going to pose some questions to you throughout this session. And if you have questions for us, you can also post them there in addition to the social media options. So I think that's all the housekeeping information I have. I'm going to briefly introduce our sponsors by name, and then our speakers rather by name, and then I'll let them introduce themselves in more detail. So to my right is Damian Greathead, and then Bob Wang, and then Jeannie Whitehouse. So welcome, and let's hear a little bit about each of you.
Gail, thank you very much for having us. Damian Greathead with ReceiptBank. Been with ReceiptBank for about 4 years now. Prior to ReceiptBank, I was a customer of ReceiptBank. So in the accounting firm, we used ReceiptBank and we saw the difference that it made. And so now working with accountants around the world to help them enjoy those benefits as well. So thanks very much for having us, Gail.
Sure.
Hi, my name is Bob. My firm is called Legacy Advantage. I'm from Vancouver, Canada. We started our business 3 years ago, and within these last 3 years, we had built almost a $2 million practice, hiring and firing a lot of people. So I hope I can add value to you guys today.
Good morning, I'm Jeannie Whitehouse. I'm a CPA. I work with wineries in the Napa Valley part of the time. The rest of the time, I'm writing and speaking about nerdy stuff. Back to you.
All right, excellent. All right, so since this session is about the shared economy and team building and talent development, let's start with what do we mean by the shared economy?
Basically, as far as I'm aware, it's the freelancers. It's we at this tax time we'll have a W-2, but I'm pretty sure we'll be getting some 1099s. And as we do some Uber driving, as we do some freelance writing, some freelance designing, basically that's what I see as the shared gig economy that's starting to grow. And I think it's one of the fastest growing segments of the labour pool.
Yeah, it means you can work, live anywhere, and people enjoy that freedom.
Mm.
I really like the fact that it's called the gig economy, because I think gig can have 2 terms. You know, the technology slant on that is that there's a bunch of data. We have gigs of data that we're dealing with, and then also that we have individual gigs or jobs or projects that we work on. And I think the combination of all this data that's out there now and our different ways of working is giving us a real opportunity as an accounting profession to make sense of the data and to work with that data on our own terms. So we can come in as a data expert in a very refined or very focused area and add high value and work less and get paid, a premium for the skills that we put to bear on that data or making sense of it.
And I think as well, Jenny, the important part of is, back to Bob's point, on your terms.
That's right.
Because wherever you choose to work, you can work. We're no longer restricted to that traditional 50-mile radius of an accounting firm. Whether that's clients, whether that's team members, we can really amplify our expertise.
And that attitude has really translated into firms as well, where my staff, they want to work from anywhere, anytime, as long as the work gets done. The results there, they're happy with that.
Yeah, and I think some of us old folks are not really comfortable yet in figuring out how to manage an environment like that. And I think at our firm, we're 22 professionals again in Napa Valley. I work at that firm part of the time, and we have people now that we can't hire people locally. We're in a very expensive market to live. And so the only way we get staff is to accept them remotely. We've got our first full-time remote team member that we're just bringing on board.
How exciting.
That opens the door because everybody's going, well, why do I need to be here? If we can do it with one person, and we haven't figured out how to make the cultural environment leverageable across those remote workers. And so I think it's really a transition phase for us. Again, the traditional folks who are still running some of these firms really haven't figured out what to do yet. The employees have figured it out. But I think the management staff is still struggling. I think we have a ways to go.
Well, I think that's much to do with the legacy systems in place, the legacy technology, the traditional servers, and the way the information came in from clients was very physical based.
Bring the paper.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas now we've got the people can work anywhere, anytime, can access that data anywhere, anytime, because as long as you can take a picture of your pet, your lunch, your vacation, you can take a photo of that W-2, take a photo of that source doc, and the technology gets to work. So I think it's the way in which we manage, WIP, workflow. It's been very manual traditionally, and so I think to help accountants and help the management of accounting firms get up to speed on that, we've got to look at some of those workflow and some of those practice management tools that give them the confidence of productivity when I can't physically see you in the office.
Yeah. I mean, we're still doing, we were talking about, and we had a discussion last week about looking at new office space and how that would transition. We don't need as much space. And we were talking about this back room area that we have for assembling returns. And I said, why are we assembling returns? We're putting the paper together, and they said, because our clients still want the paper. And we're going, who wants paper returns? Who wants your tax return in paper? I don't. I just file it and get the electronic whenever I need it. But we're still in that mindset. We have this huge space dedicated to stapling the papers together.
Well, training and everything has been Sally, same as last year.
Exactly.
And well, the clients want it that way, but the clients don't know what they don't know.
We haven't given them an option.
Yeah.
And we haven't made it easy for them to access their electronic data.
And for all intents and purposes, they're running the rest of their life, so personally, professionally, probably on their smartphone.
Yeah.
And we, just as the accounting profession, haven't brought these tools to the forefront to say, hey, there's a better way of working.
And we were assembling, we had 48 copies of a financial statement that we had somebody in the back stapling. I hear this thing go slam, slam, slam. And she's like, why are we doing that?
That's right.
48 paper copies of a financial statement. It's how we've always done it, right?
So in terms of talent development then, let's start at the low end, because it used to be great because we had new staff coming in so they could do that job.
So, that job's gone. Damien's eliminated that for all of us. What do we do with those people now, Damien?
Was that really the best use of a highly educated individual?
Scanning.
Yeah, exactly. Scanning and stapling.
And coffee, don't forget that.
And coffee, it's great to have.
I was pretty good at that, so I'm really kind of sad to see my best job function going away. But
So we're either starting with people coming in either ripe to be trained and ready to learn really useful skills, or we're bringing people in who already have skills that are really marketable and useful. So so how does that, because I think accounting firms are all structured so that they're used to training the people from the stapling room and bringing them up a little by little. And remember that great revelation when you were putting together tax returns and you realized there's a code on the top of each form that shows you what order they go in. Who knew? So you learn those things, but now that we don't need to do that, it seems like it's a brave new world for accountants coming out of school to actually be utilized in the way they were trained. So it seems like it's all on the upside.
I think there's a lot of frustration, though, that we're not getting them quality stuff soon enough. I think the expectation is there that they will have cool, interesting stuff to do immediately, and at least, and again, in traditional practices. And I think in the bookkeeping, where we're leveraging transactional focus earlier, they are getting opportunities. But in traditional firms with tax and audit, there's still a sort of a sluggy sort of thing you have to go through to get to the.
But also think about it, if they're
interesting
coming
work.
out of university and textbooks are no longer a thing of the past because
Yeah.
you rent the chapters that you need and
Yeah.
everything is submitted digitally, and then they come into an accounting
And we're
office and there's
stapling.
piles of paper. It astounds me. But I think Bob's always said
horrible.
hire the
Fit.
attitude, hire for fit.
Right. And that's what we're. And
Train
that's
for
we're
skill.
really seeing different people that we're bringing in these days. That's the biggest transition
Different
I've
skill
seen.
set.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're looking for different, well-rounded people who can actually communicate with clients. And it used to be technical skills were the main thing, and now it's a very different kind of person we're looking for because they have to be flexible enough to transition to whatever comes tomorrow. It can't be our traditional detail-oriented routine, do it by rote over and over again. Those people can't succeed.
Exactly.
What are you
Yeah,
saying,
yeah.
Bob?
We hire people that are not necessarily born, but they are familiar and comfortable in the digital environment, right? Because tools change all the time. Just the other day, we implemented from one payment software to another,
Yeah.
and the whole firm needed to shift.
Transition, yeah.
And there are people that are really struggling, and we just have
Yeah.
to guide them along. But that's what we've been seeing. Even in universities, they get trained on the basic skill sets, the journal entries, the debits and
They're
credits.
still not getting as much technology as they need.
That's
They're,
right,
they're
they
still
need to.
doing the training the old way. 'Cause we still
Exactly.
have people my age doing the instruction.
Yeah, so
Here's
they're-
your form, and here's your journal entry sheet with 12 columns, and we want you to understand it.
But to an extent, it's good because you understand the mechanics of
Yeah.
what's actually happening behind the software. But you need to be able to use the software.
So what kind of practice do you have? Are you doing bookkeeping and
Yeah, I actually
and
primarily
tax?
have a bookkeeping practice
Yeah.
where I don't do any tax or
Yeah.
any audits or anything like that. We're a specialist firm in
Yeah.
that way.
Yeah, which makes a lot of sense. these
Okay,
days.
we're going to just real briefly display the first CPE code on the bottom of your screen. So be sure to take note, write down that 3-digit number, and we'll keep it up there for about 10 seconds. So hurry up, and then we'll continue with that. And I want to just change gears briefly for a moment because we're talking about accountants and their background and their skill set and bringing them into accounting firms and looking for more refined skills. Let's flip that for the moment to think about our clients.
Yeah.
And how are they experiencing this kind of change in the way talent is being perceived and the way it's being utilized in their companies?
Now, do you mean in terms of how clients are interacting with the accounting firm, or more so just in their own,
Their own.
Well, what the
within their own
accounting firm
businesses?
needs to know about any transition that's occurring with their client companies.
Okay.
So I think there are huge implications for this remote work thing because it involves individual income taxes in the different states. We have to worry about state income tax across different zones that we weren't used to dealing with. Sales taxes impacted. There's all sorts of implications of having people all over the country and all over the world that we're not used to having to deal with our clients. So they're globalized now, they're multi-locational, and we have to be smarter about asking questions that might trigger some tax or financial statement implication. And I don't think we're necessarily used to doing that and thinking about them having workers all over the place too. But also who we communicate with changes. And our job as accountants, to me, is to educate our clients and their teams about their numbers. And so if I have people working remotely and in different places, it behooves me to get more closely involved with that company and make sure that those remote workers as well understand the financial impact of what they're doing, whether they're doing it from a remote location or locally. Sometimes we get to the local people.
Because you don't have that everyone gather around.
You can't just go to the
have
office
a huddle
and share the numbers kind of stuff. We got to
absolutely.
make sure that the message is getting out in a different way and that it's a message that can be delivered by somebody else. And we're not doing that very well today.
On the bookkeeping side, I'm just realizing that clients just want to be able to give you stuff on the go as opposed to come to your office
Yeah.
and drop
Oh,
it
yeah.
off,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
ReceiptBank, one of our favorite features is the communication back and forth. So if I get a receipt that I don't know what's for, I can
Yeah.
send a message directly through the app that asks, hey, what is this for? And the client can respond on the go on their phone while they're traveling to and from airports. I think that
that's huge.
Yeah, that's allowed us to get the data, the right data, much quicker as opposed to waiting, weeks as opposed, when they find a time to sit in front of a computer.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I found on the bookkeeping side.
I think for accountants advising their clients on opportunities for automation in the back office.
Yeah.
Again, going back to an earlier statement of they don't know what they don't know.
Yeah.
And because they've always done the accounts this way, because they've always done the document collection or document management this way, that's just the way it's always been done. But whether that's billing and collections, whether that's the CRM system, whether that's just the basic bookkeeping, there are so many opportunities for automation which frees up those resources to do much more valuable activities. And so I think it's up to us to help our clients understand that there's a better way of doing things. They probably know that there's a better way to make widgets, but the back office processes, payroll, client engagement, point of sale systems, making sure that the connectivity is there, because the amount of duplication that happens, even just in payroll, the amount of duplication that happens in payroll blows my mind. And that's just lost time that you're never going to get back.
You don't want to see what's going on in the wine industry, Damien, because there are different systems for every aspect of the business, and none of the data is integrated, and the integration process is a nightmare, and it's unbelievable. And there's a high tolerance for that, which is the mind-boggling thing to me, that people will put up with 5,000 spreadsheets every month to get stuff from here to here to there to there to there. But I also think that, again, the accounting profession, when we go to these shows, you guys, we're all going to these conferences, we see 3,000 to 5,000 people at a show. There are 360,000 members of the AICPA. That means there are a ton of accountants who aren't learning what's going on in technology, so they have nothing to share with their clients who need to know about the tools that are out there. So I think we have a huge information gap in our profession.
But they've got
hopefully we're bridging some of that today.
But they've got this untapped resource, which is probably their younger tech-savvy team who would love to get out and find...
And learn about it, but we're not sending them out.
Yeah.
And so we're not in a position to even ask our clients about their technology challenges because we don't have the insight to help them in many cases. And that's a huge disservice.
Bring up a great point. You know, for these younger people that are coming in, they might be just intuitively they might know what's on the market, and as partners of the firm, don't just dismiss them, but really listen. Like, hey, you know, you should look at this app or look at this integration.
I have to really come clean here. As an old person, I really have a hard time with a young whippersnapper coming up and knowing something that I don't know. It's really hard for me.
I love that you still use the word whippersnapper.
These young whippersnappers, how they know all this stuff. And it's
We're
really
just excited. We're just excited.
I know, it's great, but I'm noticing that I'm becoming this curmudgeon. If I don't know it, I don't want to hear about all the cool stuff that you guys. It's a really hard thing to leverage, you know, to stay up, because there's so many apps every day, and there are tools that you know, young people are natively using, and we have to figure out how to tap into that resource and support them in sharing that, not sort of shut them down. Yeah, I know about that, and it's not very good, which is my inclination sometimes.
Yeah, one thing to add here is, you know, the interaction with clients through video.
Yeah.
I think it's a brand new trend, you know, doing presentations on your financials through video, so people can jump on Zoom while they're on the go.
Wait, Bob, we're supposed to present the financials? You're making a big leap here.
Oh, no.
Can I just mail it and put it on my electronic portal and I'm done, right?
That's funny. Make sure to staple it.
Yeah, staple it first.
But I think as well, there's that element of compensation and the reward system is based on billable hours, and so we've got to.
Don't tell Ed class. Don't listen, Ed.
We've got to transition that, because why would we get our team engaged in technology choices, in workflow improvements?
We're going to cut down the hours.
If we're going to cut down that's going to impact directly the main way in which they're compensated.
Well, what are we supposed to do now, Damien?
I don't know.
You're taking away all my billable hours.
I know Legacy Advantage, for example, Bob's firm. They it's not a billable hour target, but it's a revenue target.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you were talking about, you know, the difficulty in transitioning staff out of the office, because I think one of the reasons is you can't monitor them as well.
Exactly. Can't count stuff.
You can't count stuff. Can't see if you're actually sitting at your desk doing the work. But just because you're sitting at the desk doesn't mean you're actually working. Right? And so for us, it was really important to adopt the results-only work environment, the ROWE, results-only work environment. So the first step for a firm to go remote is actually defining what results mean to you.
That's the big shift
That's the big question you need to ask. And for us, as a bookkeeping firm, it's just how much client revenue you can service, how much bookkeeping work can you get done, and the more efficient you are by implementing more technology, the more you'll make. That's a very results-oriented compensation model.
So wait a minute. So how do I measure that this person has not just done the work, but done it to my standards?
So then we have a quality score adjustment that qualifies their commission, so to speak, that, you know, ensures or incentivizes them to deliver high quality work.
So, we count
Checks and
whatever's
balances.
easiest as accountants, and that's why ours is what we do.
Exactly.
So your stuff is hard. That's hard to
But
do.
also,
Yeah.
it's harder. But also,
Yeah.
what else? What's another important metric? Customer satisfaction.
Yeah.
So Net Promoter Score and how happy
Yeah.
is the client
Yeah.
with the actual firm, and making sure that there's a system in place to measure that, to capture that, and feed that information back into the firm and back into the team. These types of metrics, they're the results. They're the results
It should be what matters.
of what matters. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And that's how performance needs to be
Yeah.
judged. And I've seen it before when you look at people and they're in control of their own book of business and their revenue, and they've got
Yeah.
their revenue target,
Yeah.
and they're getting out of the office a couple of hours earlier than
Yeah.
other people. They're making more money, whatever it is.
Yeah.
The firm catches on pretty quickly once they start to see one or two of those examples.
Yeah.
The
of-
staff really love it too because it allows
Yeah.
them to plan their
They're live.
their lives. Exactly. Yeah, they
What a
can plan
concept.
they plan their work around their life as opposed to
Yeah.
plan their life around their work.
Yeah.
Right, much higher satisfaction. I have a
Yeah.
staff member that has a lot of friends in Asia, and he's on Skype with them until 2 a.m. in the morning, and comes to work at 1 p.m. Like that would never fly in a traditional firm, right?
No.
But
bring
hey,
that to
I don't
my
care.
firm.
He's one of our
Yeah.
best performers.
Yeah,
Great, good for
It
you.
doesn't matter.
And same type of thing is in the winter, I want to get out and ski.
Yeah.
In the summer, I'm more than happy to put my head down and work. But so
Yeah.
it puts me in control of that. I know what my target is. I can
Yeah.
plan my month. I can plan my day, and then the onus is back on me to actually produce those results rather than
Yes.
just clock in and clock out.
But it's also very difficult for a profession that's used to managing the hours
Yeah.
and not the people
Yep.
to transition now to really make sure that your people are given the skills and the tools they need to be successful. And that is a huge shift.
Yeah.
We don't have that people management skill naturally inside most of our firms, I don't think.
The question
so that's
I
a
want
very
to
different way.
pose is, if your staff are compensated based on hours, then
Yeah.
they're incentivized to be as slow as possible. Of
Exactly.
course, there's ethics in
Exactly.
place, but that's what they're thinking, right? And so if you're saying, hey, implement ReceiptBank or this app, that app to half your time, why should I? then you're going against the grain.
Well,
Then
that's the whole challenge we have.
Yeah.
There's still a lot of that hourly billing thinking going on. I know you're running up against that.
Well,
not as much in bookkeeping anymore. thank
Yeah.
goodness.
But I think that's changing as well because the client expectations are changing.
Different, yeah.
They're not.
They're not
if
accepting that.
They're not accepting that invoice that says
Yeah,
tax
this many
prep,
hours.
monthly work,
And
this many
15
hours.
cents for postage.
Yeah. And so because they can choose their insurance providers, they can see
Right.
the differences. All
Yeah.
of the information is at their fingertips. And so I think that will be one of the major drivers of firms making this leap, making this transition, because their clients will demand it.
And I think, the pricing model now that we expect on software where we can see what we're going to pay by the month.
Yep.
It used to be a hidden thing. When I was at software, I was at ACPAC and Sage and Navision. We didn't disclose the pricing. It was a complicated thing. And now software online, you can go see what the price is before you dig any deeper. And I think that has changed what people look for in general for any kind of service they acquire. They want to know up front what's the price going to be.
But also,
And
they
we-
can
yeah.
summon a car.
Yeah, they can do anything.
They can summon a car to them.
And they know what it's going to cost.
And not actually have to interact with anyone,
Right.
not actually take out their wallet, anything
Yeah.
along those lines.
Yeah.
I can have organic produce delivered to my house
Yeah.
within 2 hours. Those
What was that word you used? Produce?
produce.
You got a funny accent, Damien.
I got the funny accent, maybe the more foreign accent is what we'll say. But that is what's driving the change.
That's right.
Because
Everything we do is
everything is
different.
just dripping into what we can experience in our day-to-day life is going to be dripping into what we expect from our professional service providers, from our vendors. And the sooner
Yeah.
we come, let's not be lagging. Let's not be laggards on that one. Let's look at what are the applications that we can put in our clients' hands to facilitate this flow of information that's much quicker, flow of information and communication to and from the team that's much more efficient and much more cost-effective.
I was staying at the Hilton just down the road here, and when I checked in, I got a text message. Hey,
Yeah,
just making sure
that's
right.
thing's okay. As a
great.
millennial, I really, really appreciated that.
I
don't
know.
Yeah.
Thank God they're finally doing that.
Yeah,
But as someone that's
great.
constantly staying in Hilton hotels,
Yeah.
you're just getting these text messages.
But at the first time,
Yeah,
it was the
which one
first
am I
time.
in? Yeah.
But imagine,
Now they're your close friends.
Yeah.
Oh, it's Andrea.
yeah.
Okay, we're going to break real briefly, not break, but just display on the screen our second CPE code for this session. So be sure to write that down and put it with your first one in a safe place. And there'll be one more before the session ends. Also, I'd like to remind you or mention to you that we are going live with some polling questions over on Slido.com. So if you can use maybe an auxiliary device so you're not leaving our session, go to Slido.com, Slido.com, and they'll ask for a hashtag, which is December CPE. And we have pulled up our first polling question for you, which is, how does your company use temporary or part-time people? So we'll gather some answers on that, and then we'll have that information for you guys. I want to jump in here real quickly with a cool story that I read about recently, which directly impacts the accounting profession and what we're talking about here. Have any of you heard of Ernst & Young's program called Gig Now? Mm-hmm. Okay, Ernst & Young, EY, launched this program a year ago called Gig Now, Gignow, and it's a global program, although it's global. It's in eight countries right now, but expanding. And what it is, it's like a matchmaking service where people with skill sets who are project people, independent contractors, can apply in the Gig Now system, and then they are called on to do projects within EY. Oh. And so it's a project matching service with skill sets. When they launched it in September last year, they had 3,000 people register, and by the end of September, they had made 500 matches. And as of this summer, they had 14,000 people registered. They were live in 8 countries, and they'd made 1,500 matches of people into projects. The thing is, with something like this, these never go backwards. It's only going to get bigger and more prominent and move forward. I think you're going to see more opportunities for the professional contract worker and the professional part-time worker come down the line. And really what is holding it back in this country right now is 2 things. It's the IRS rules about employee versus independent contractor, and those need to be defined more for the modern era because so many people are wanting to be independent contractors, and those rules were really set up to protect the independent contractor who wasn't having taxes withheld, but now more people want that role to take on their taxes themselves. And the other thing is we need a health insurance program that's portable.
That's the biggest problem.
That's what holds people in their jobs.
That's the biggest problem.
Fix those 2 things, and you're going to see an amazing just wash over the economy of people going part-time.
I think the opportunity for individuals is to really focus on a skill set strength, because it makes it easier for you to be leverageable in a project-based environment. You need to have some real depth in given areas, either industry expertise or some sort of unique skill set like state and local taxes or global taxation or something like that. I think that makes you highly marketable and leverageable.
Valuable.
And valuable.
You charge your
You can charge a premium rate,
Yeah.
you can work less and do focused projects where you're really leveraging your unique abilities in a different way versus having to do all this other stuff that you really don't want to be doing. And I think we're seeing that. I think all of us are doing some aspect of that. Mm-hmm. I have multiple things that I'm doing. I also have a bookkeeping business that's completely remote. All of our team is remote. And we're using people who are part-time workers to do that. Lots of women working from home with small children. It opens up opportunities that we've never had before because we're doing all this on the cloud. So, but we're also bringing in people for little small projects that we do over and over again, like reconciling, I hate to say, our point of sale system to get the data into our accounting application. We have one person who just really does great, cool stuff in Excel that we have doing all of those. So when I have a project, I just send that one little piece of work over. And those people can demand, a high rate for that particular set of skills.
Which you wouldn't think, charging a high rate for reconciliation.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense. But
I sure don't want to do it.
No, I think that's the point. Is that's not the best use of my time. So let me pay someone else.
I'm going to have somebody,
to do that.
and they just do that, and they do it in half the time. They charge a premium rate, and then I can still make some money on it when I send it out to the client. So there's real
But also
opportunity.
the nice thing about that as well is whether they're US based, whether they're international, all of a sudden your production is happening while you're sleeping, while they've woken up 3 hours earlier on the East Coast. So there's no reason why you couldn't extend the production capacity as a result of an extended workforce.
Hours.
I was going to just jump on your comment there that with this type of economy, you're giving opportunity to people that couldn't be part of the
Yeah,
workforce.
that stepped out completely and have all these
Exactly.
great skills,
Yeah,
and
we
they
have-
take a 5-year break.
Yeah,
and
we
now
have
we can
quite a
leverage
few
it.
employees
Yeah,
that just
I'm
work
sure
from
you do.
home.
Yeah.
They work for us full time, but
Yeah.
they have twins at home, and there's
Yeah.
that flexibility.
Yeah.
Drop them off for school, pick them up, whatever, as long as the work is done, right?
Yeah, you don't care as long as it gets done. That's the beautiful thing about accounting work. Is
Yeah.
basically, it should be doable at any time.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think if we look at the unemployment rates and the finding and keeping good quality people in public accounting continues to be number 1, 2, or 3 challenge. So
It's huge.
again, this is going to drive the change that we need, the client expectations and the team member expectations.
And I've seen a shift on the client side. So we have a bookkeeping business 100% remote. So people were coming to our CPA firm looking for bookkeeping help, which we don't do. And so when they called me for the bookkeeping stuff, I would go, we're 100% remote. And initially they were going, no, we want somebody to come on site. They can't find anybody to come on site anymore in local markets. So the clients are starting to be really open to that finally. It's been a couple years since we've had cloud solutions. And so they're finally receptive to remote people doing the books as well.
Right.
So that shift is happening much faster on the client side.
But also a realization of the client didn't know what they didn't know. The client
That's right.
thought
They
that
didn't.
they had to have
That's
a
right.
physical bookkeeper
We
in the
trained
office
them.
to do. Yeah,
We
exactly.
trained them that
the
way.
accountants, the trusted advisor
Yeah, I
advised
gotta
them.
come-
Yeah, I've got to come by.
Gotta come
and
sit there at
yeah.
your computer and do whatever to do.
But there's no need for that. And actually, being remote and not being on site actually means that the data gets processed in real time. So
Right.
now the clients have got better
right.
quality.
That's right.
They can log into their software at any time,
Yeah.
and the information's up to date. I mean, it's just a much better product.
Yeah, and
that the client didn't know existed.
That's right. And many of us still don't know that
Yes.
it exists,
Yeah.
unfortunately, Damien, many of our profession. We're working to change that.
All right, let's have some polling results here. We have 40% of those who responded to our poll say that they have year-round part-time staff, and 30% are hiring independent contractors.
Yeah.
Which is,
It's
I
really
think
the way-
those numbers are way higher than they
Yeah.
would have been at some point in the past.
We're having people come to us from inside the firm and suggesting alternate ways to work now, requesting it. And it's
As in
amazing.
4-day work weeks.
Yeah,
or-
we're set up for that.
Yeah.
We had a team of young people put together a proposal on Fridays off in non-busy season, and we're doing it now.
Yeah.
And we're seeing more work done in less hours
Yes.
and all that stuff.
But it's the same way. When you've got to get out the door by 2 to catch
Yeah.
a plane or
You
something
get more
like that,
done.
you get more done.
Focused.
You're focused. You're focused.
Yeah, and you've got another day.
And you're focused on your most valuable activities, not
So
not everything else.
Yeah. And it's interesting, old people put together a team to do work-life balance, and the first thing they did is came back and changed the title to life-work balance. So it's life first, and then we're like,
Yes.
we don't get it, do we? We didn't know that was an option.
Yeah.
On your point, people are way more transferable, as in they have transferable skill sets. They can
Yeah.
move from one job to another. So it's really up to us as employers to keep our staff, part-time, whether it be contractors, to retain them by giving them a
Offering
life that is different.
Support
But then
them in
also-
living their own dreams, whatever those
Exactly,
are.
yeah.
And then just make sure that if they do need to step out to do much more important things, that they're welcome to step back in
Yes.
when they're ready to come back in.
But the problem there is that we must have processes in place to
Yeah.
function
Yeah.
effectively. That's where you help us with getting the workflow done and some of that, but we still don't have all the other processes necessarily figured out.
Yeah.
So that we can have people come and go and still keep the work getting done the way we need it.
That's a great point. When you have people coming in and out,
Yeah.
documentation becomes
It's
so
so
key.
important.
So key.
In paper, right? And stapled
Or
in the
video.
notebook.
Yeah.
Yeah, or video.
Yeah.
Okay, we have another question up on Slido.com, which is, do you expect to hire contractors in the year ahead? So we'd like to hear from our audience how many are expecting to hire freelance workers in the year ahead. And another question just to throw out to you is it the case, do you think, that if you're a firm that is hiring part-time or permanent part-time or contracting workers, are you more likely to be able to better relate to clients who are doing that themselves than if you stick to the traditional model yourself, even though your clients are trying something new?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
yeah,
I
whatever you-
think you're going to be in a much better position to advise clients. I think what Jeannie's comment there earlier about the different state legislations and tax implications
Yeah.
of that, I think that's probably the first foot in the
Yeah.
door and the first talking point to help clients with. And then sharing that experience of they also have employees that leave the workforce for females leave the workforce and have
Yeah.
children and whatnot.
Yeah.
So they're having exactly the same challenges. The unemployment rate is at a historical low. So whether it's accounting or the clients of accounting firms, we're going to be impacted by the same challenges. And I think automation in certain aspects of our business and their business is one of the ways in which we can free up resources. But these flexible work environments, the workflow, the processes, the tools, that's all critical as well. And again, there's no reason why the AR clerk in a business needs to be sitting in that office to do accounts receivable or to do whatever function of it is. So I think it's an exciting time. And unfortunately, accountants are so busy doing the debits and credits that they don't have time to have these conversations. So what are the ways in which we can free up time to have those types of conversations, or free up our team members' time?
That's the opportunity that's upon us right now, is to take this time that we're giving up, this automation of all the stuff we didn't want to do anyway, and convert that time into quality conversations with clients where we're really understanding their challenges. And I don't think, we haven't done that. That's not our strength, is having these conversations, inquiring about what's happening in their life and in their work, learning about the real pain and suffering that goes on every day for a business owner, and trying to help them with that stuff. And that's where we have to move. That's the only place left for us to go and continue to be relevant, is to start really adding value to that business, helping those business owners achieve their business goals.
A lot of the conversations and the value that I bring to those conversations actually comes from running my own business.
Yeah, you're living it.
Definitely.
Yeah, you're living it.
Yeah.
You know what it's like when you can't cover payroll.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not fun.
Yeah.
One of the things I wanted to mention about the remote working and the tax situation is this Wayfair ruling on sales tax, which has made the nexus calculation different, is having an implication, I think, on state income taxes as well. Because if nexus rules change for sales tax, the states are going to start looking to get paid easier as well for income tax. And so it's going to change the way we think about having workers in multiple locations. We're going to be paying anyway.
Yep.
And so it may make it easier to actually deal with that. We're just going to start paying every state at some point to cover whatever we're doing in those states, because there's some sales or some activity happening.
I'm sure there's an app for that.
Well, I'm sure there's an app for that. There is. There's a couple that we already had on the panel. But you still have to be aware of the complexities of operating in today's world. But I think the global issue is one we still haven't figured out. If we have global workers, we have a whole different set of rules we got to deal with in terms of tax and compliance and a bunch of other stuff. And there's still a lot of opportunity there as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have some questions from our audience. First of all, if you're talking about value pricing bookkeeping services, how do you deal with the poor client provided data resulting in more work for the firm? So when you want to be efficient, but you just can't because of the client.
In those cases, you just got to have a conversation with the client. Our value pricing or this price assumes that you're going to give us good quality work, and there's two ways we can go. Number one, implement this software and that software to make sure the data comes in is good. Or number two, we need to double our price because your input data is not good. So just having those conversations allows you to price better.
When you switch to any sort of fixed fee, whether it's value pricing or just fixed fee pricing, the onus is on you to do the investigative work before you take that client on.
Yeah,
and
sure.
if we do a needs analysis project, which is relatively high priced by design, because I don't want to screw around with them if they're not going to pay for. If they want the cheapest bookkeeping company on the planet, we're not it. We don't want to do the work. We want to add real value. So I do an assessment, I do an analysis. We have a whole process of looking at what they have, and that becomes the basis for setting a fixed fee. So if I haven't figured that out up front, it's my fault that I don't know what kind of a mess I'm dealing with. And then at that point, I can either give them a low, medium, or high fee. We'll just do the basic stuff, or we'll fix all this mess that you have, and this is the fee for that. Or we'll do this other special project to fix your inventory, costing, or whatever it is that's the problem. So it's really becomes, when you go to a fixed fee world, it becomes much more important that you understand before you start what you're getting into, and that you document your plans and also their systems and all that other stuff, so that you can really manage the engagement better.
But I think that critically important as well is the accounting firm, the bookkeeping firm dictates the process.
Exactly.
The number of
this
times,
is how we're going to do it.
The number of times you go into a firm and yes, they're on QuickBooks Online or Xero, and I say, well, and the bank feed's enabled, and they're no, the client won't allow that. The client won't do that. The client won't do this. Exactly. And so we price this on the assumptions that they will do A, B, and C. And when the client sort of turns around and says no on B,
then the price is tripled.
Exactly. But it's a difficult conversation to have.
After the fact.
After the fact. And then also it's, hang on, what was lost in translation when we were talking about the tools that we were using? There's obviously a fear or an objection there which we need to handle. But that's where we lose a lot of money as well, is we assume that they're going to use these tools, but they're not going to enable the full functionality or the assumptions that we put into our costing systems. So I think getting the clients onto your system process is critical to maintaining that margin on client accounting services.
But I just want to make sure, this used to be the way we did things. You know, back in the old days, we forced them to have our chart of accounts because it was easier for us.
Yeah.
And so I think I say these are the tools that you're going to use because it's going to be better for you.
Yes,
As well as more efficient for me. But really, what's the customer impact of those tools? And most of the tools, all of the tools that we're implementing, make life better for them.
Yeah.
And this is how we do it in my world. And I list it. You're going to use this, we use that, we use that. And I don't have, there's no option. You're coming to my thing and we're doing it. If not, I'm not the right fit for you.
And that's very much when, if you go out and you say, I need you to use ReceiptBank and these different tools, and the reason why is because it's going to make me more efficient. The client's going to say, well, I don't care. But if you're going to use ReceiptBank because it's going to allow a real-time flow of information.
And you're going to know who you owe and how much.
If the IRS ever comes knocking, we'll have all the information. We can guard against fraud because we've got a source document against every single outgoing payment. That's the reason you should be using these tools, and that's the value proposition of it, not the impact on the firm. And I think for a lot of it, the technology that firms have implemented has always been firm focused.
About us. How can we make
and so
my
we've struggled
life better?
communicating the value prop of this tool set that we're putting in our clients' hands.
Okay, we have poll results. We have almost 60% of our participating listeners said that they either expect to hire contractors in the year ahead or they're considering it. So more than half, so that's pretty exciting. And
I would be getting out and writing letters to all of those former employees that you lost for not bad reasons, or hang on. The people that you didn't lose. Sorry, I didn't quite say that correctly. But the people that left the firm for non-performance related. Let's get a letter out to them to find out what they're up to and what they're doing, and let's be proactive about it and build a stable, if you will, of contractors.
You know, that's one of the things Deloitte does well. I was a Deloitte alum, and they're still reaching out. They're managing that list because those are prospective opportunities for them to tap into some sort of skill set or strength.
Exactly.
And keeping
they're great at staying in touch. Keeping
that list working.
What I also do want to mention is that, you know, there's skill for sure, but don't forget about culture, because once you bring these part-time people in and contractors, they still need to be part of your team. They still need to feel like part of your team. You know, don't treat your employees one way and contractors another way.
So how do you do that well, Bob? Because we're struggling with that. You know, they don't get to come to the Christmas party and the bowling in the hallway.
Why not?
Well, they do come to the Christmas party, but we're doing bowling in the hallway one day at the office, and they're at home.
And wait, let me just, I have to say that in the notes that we did in preparation for this this session, Jeannie made the comment, and I don't know what it had to do with any of this, except that she made the comment that her office now has an office dog.
Which was a huge thing. Huge shift. We've been beating on our managing partner, and he finally curved on the Fridays off, and now the dog's in the office. I mean, we're hip and cool now, right?
So dogs, multiple dogs?
One dog.
Or just a dog?
One dog is past whatever the standard is for behavior in the office. And so, it's cool. But how do you do that?
The key is just the invite. I mean, it doesn't matter if
we just never expect them to be there, but we just include them on the invitation. And we have wine on Fridays, and we got remote people.
But
we send them a bottle of wine on Fridays.
There you go.
I need to tell the managing partner to do that. Here's your bottle for the month.
Yeah, exactly.
Drink a little bit each Friday.
Save it.
But look at the communication devices. Look at Slack. Look at Zoom. Look at meetings. Sort of we sometimes think because they are away, there's no reason why they couldn't throw the Zoom camera, throw the Zoom meeting on during happy hour.
And watch the drunk people in the office.
And watch all the fun that they're missing out on.
Great.
Well, you have Uber Eats these days, or
well, these
skip the
people are in
dishes?
different states. I mean, they're not, they're not.
But again, there's ways to do it, Jeannie.
I know.
You're sort of putting up
I need to start working on that, really, because I haven't thought about that. We need to be sending them like this. They have little tasting kits of wine from our clients. We can send them here's join the taste. And
there you go.
We need to do that. I'm going to go back and work on that.
We sometimes say, look, go out on a family meal on us.
Oh, that's
right. We have monthly lunches as a team. But you go and have a meal
really
with your
good
team.
idea. See, we're just old people thinking. We don't think about it.
You've got the office dog, but everyone's got dogs, and so is there
Send some treats.
the wall board or the pictures of all the dogs and all that type of stuff, and match the partner to the pet, and anyway, you can have a lot of fun with it, which I think you can, which you don't have to be physically face to face in an office to experience. And if you've looked at Facebook groups, Yammer groups, Slack conversations, all the tools are there.
Yeah, we're using Skype for the
You've just got to think a little bit more, a little bit outside the box.
My box is getting smaller every day. Yeah, it's just stuff we don't think about.
Yeah.
But that's the benefit of coming in with fresh new perspective.
There
You're
you
not
go.
hampered by the old ways that we have to undo before we can redo, as we were talking about at other sessions.
But I think also, back to Bob's point, what's important from a culture standpoint? What are the key values of the firm?
Yeah.
And then make sure that we're aligned with that. Just because we don't need to bring beanbags in and ping pong tables and all that type of stuff, but we can still have a very competitive, fun work environment.
Yeah.
And
Where we're
but
communicating.
let's get what are those key values written down. Let's talk about them and then align the activities with those core values.
Yeah.
And one of our attendees suggested that you look into Skype Friday cocktail parties.
We have Skype, yeah,
Okay.
we are. But we got to get the alcohol to the participants. That's the thing.
And if
But they can
they,
get it themselves. You can just reimburse them.
True. Look at that. What a creative idea. Yeah.
Expense reports. Yeah, there we go. You can use ReceiptBank for
Yeah,
that.
exactly.
That's right. We can use expense receipt banks.
All right, we're going to post our third CPE code right now on the screen, so be sure to take note of this. This is the third of 3 codes, so you'll need this along with the other 2 codes in order to get your CPE credit for this session. Okay, and so as we wind up, do we have any kind of ending thoughts that you guys want to share or tips for our members?
I would just say you've got to embrace the change, and maybe it's about spending some time talking with your team about what's important to them. Just the idea of the one-to-one has sort of disappeared. It seems to be more of a one-to-many or more of a broadcast on the mail to everyone. But sometimes I think that one-to-one is what's important to you. Okay, so tax season's coming up. Are you anxious? How's the family? What do we need to put in place to make you as productive and as efficient as possible? And if you're sort of in young families, then you want to make sure that they do have the capability to work from home in the event that a child is sick or something like that. So what's the stuff that we need to have in their office to make sure they're productive?
Yeah.
The extra monitor, the scanner, whatever it is that they need, the internet connection. We as the firm give that to them to make them as productive as possible. So I think just ask the team, what is it that's important to you? And tax season's just around the corner. What makes you most anxious about tax season? And they might say, you know what, we just want some healthier snacks in the office.
Yeah.
I know you bring in pizza, but
We've had that one.
yeah.
Nobody eats that stuff.
Yeah.
They go back to the junk food.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a request.
Yeah.
I think one thing we haven't talked about yet is actually the fear of training people for a part-time or contract role and then they leave.
Yeah,
I think
you
that's
always get that.
Yeah, I think that's a real fear, and
Yeah.
and to that I want to share a quote from Richard Branson that I wrote down is, train people well enough so they can leave, but treat them well enough so they don't want to. And that's always been my philosophy, training full-time, part-time contractors, because they are part of your team, and that's another comment on focus on your culture, no matter what type of worker they are.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, so the counter to that argument is, what if you don't train them and they stay? And that's what we end up,
But I
we
think,
end up with a bunch of
but I think,
duds.
Jeannie, you've got to go back to that culture. And how many
That's right.
times have you seen that they're a good technician, but they're a drain on everyone's enthusiasm
Everybody
and
works
everyone's
around them.
Yeah, exactly.
It's,
And whether that's a team member, whether that's a client, whatever it is, we don't want to have that difficult conversation. You see it at the partner level. 2 partners, they start a firm together, and you know what? Over time, what's important to them has changed. And if you don't have that difficult conversation, basically everyone knows what's going on and nobody's prepared to have that difficult conversation, and that will force people to leave. That will force those A players to leave. That will force
all the good people exit, and the bad culture person
You're stuck
tends
with
to draw
mediocrity.
people that are
Yeah.
still, and
Yeah.
they don't have other options.
Yeah.
They're the ones that end up staying. And it's amazing to me how often that happens. And as a profession, we are wired to avoid conflict, and so those difficult conversations get delayed for way too many years.
But
years
then
and
also
years and years.
we also know that the value of a good technician. So sometimes
Yeah.
you sort of
We skew it that way.
Yeah, and you put up with bad behaviour because you know that they knock out a good return, or they're very good technically at what they do. But I think that it just sucks the life out of the firm.
It really does.
Yeah.
All right, and I had posted another question in our ReceiptBank.com, and I didn't actually tell you guys about it. But a lot of people were up there anyway, paying attention. So the question was, what hesitations do you have, if any, about hiring contractors? If you want to add to this list, please go to Slido.com, #DecemberCPE, and you can add your comments on what hesitations you might have. But some of the things that were actually the major thing that people are saying that gives them hesitation about hiring outside contractors is security.
Yeah.
So what are
think
your
that's-
tips for making sure that people feel confident that document sharing and security issues are being covered?
In our case, we give everyone our own laptops. You use our laptops to do our work on these laptops, and when you're done, just send it back.
That's a great way. I mean, we're relying on the cloud infrastructure that we're using to protect us on that, and I think we're a little naive. I think we need to tighten that down a little better. But you definitely have to invest in the IT.
And I think it's some policies and procedures and
Yeah.
some expectations
How you use
and
it,
whatnot.
yeah.
But I think that's probably one of the best ones is
Just send them a box that's preloaded with your...
here's the
Yeah.
technology.
And you can
on it.
reuse it, right?
And
You
we
ha-
do that in the firm. We
Yeah.
have the cloud, we're using Abacus Next cloud environment for all of our tools, so
Right.
we're easily remote. But the boxes is still a challenge. Sometimes we're still relying on their systems.
The beauty of a lot of these tools, though, now is the actual audit trail that sits behind it. So, and I'll just use the ReceiptBank example, but I can
Yeah.
see who submitted what, who changed it, when they
Yeah.
changed it, what they changed it to.
Yeah.
We had one amazing story where an accounting partner, they called me and said, Damien, a document's gone missing. And I was like, that doesn't make any sense, but
Yeah.
let me investigate. And the client was complaining because the tool said, and they said, well, this ReceiptBank doesn't work. And so we went in and said, they forwarded this email that said, here's the invoice. As it turned out, it was the accounting firm's invoice that had gone missing, so they weren't
That's not
paying on
good.
it. But then so basically went into the audit trail, the whole system, and I then did a screen share and I said, Denise, click here, and you can see that the client submitted it on this date, changed it on this date, and then deleted it on this date. So screenshot that and back to the
I
client.
think they weren't happy with their service.
Yeah, exactly. So
Wow.
again, that audit trail
Yeah.
and the visibility,
Yeah,
I think,
that's-
is key within these tools that will help guard against a lot of the security concerns.
Yeah, that's a big plus that we don't think about.
Yeah.
We have this audit trail now
Yeah.
in lots of places where we're not used to having it. But also the thing that you guys do so well is for the expense documentation.
Yep.
Is the biggest challenge for tax people working with clients in the event of an audit. There is no paper trail for these expenses. And to have just that emailed to the accounting firm to keep all track of that for their clients is one of the biggest benefits I think we've had in recent years.
But also,
just
you think
managing that.
But then, what's the benefit to the client? Expense reimbursement fraud is one of the
huge.
up there with time fraud is one of the biggest frauds
huge.
against small business.
Yeah, it's a huge
So help your
yeah.
clients
And the whole
guard
credit
against
card,
fraud. Yeah.
but also their audit exposures
Yeah.
because of what they're doing on the travel and the meals. Even though the deductibility is going down year after year, we still need that documentation, and it's
Yeah.
the biggest pain for people, and we can help alleviate that. Just email me the photo from your phone, and you're done.
Good,
Yeah. Yeah.
Huge.
Just to go back to your question here, on top of sending laptops, you can give them a company email. It doesn't cost you much.
Yeah.
So everything they do is within your company environment, and when
Yeah.
they're done, you can scrap it, save it, get them sent
You
it back,
still own it.
whatever,
Yeah.
and you're good.
You have to do that if you ever need client interaction. Say they're a representative of your firm, not joesmith@gmail.com.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think because of the tools now, I think it's actually much more secure than when you
hope
brought
so.
someone into your office and there was a banker's box of
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
documents sitting there.
course.
That's
so
definitely-
I think it was much more. I think it's much more secure now.
Yeah.
But
And
it
just
is process
leverageable.
and policy. Yeah.
And
yeah.
leverageable.
And scalable. Yeah.
We don't care where you're sitting.
And you can just switch it on, switch it off
Yeah.
as you need to. I think that's the most exciting part of it.
Yeah, it really does give us opportunities we didn't have.
Right. And I would just add that we are a profession built on ethics, and so we hire people and assume a certain level of ethical behavior, whether they work in our office or not. And someone
Yeah.
can work in your office and screw with the records and
Yeah.
disclose information they shouldn't while they're sitting in your office just
Yes.
as well as they can outside.
Yeah.
It's the choice of who we hire and monitoring that and making sure we're confident that they're the people we want to work
Yeah,
with.
and what are we doing to make sure that's the case is the other thing. The hiring is much more important on our end to make sure we're hiring the right caliber of people. And do we have the right processes in place for that? I'm not
Right.
sure that we do all the time.
All right, well, we're ready to wrap here. So thank you so much. Excellent session. And we will continue back at the top of the hour. And our next session is, let me just cue it up here so I know what I'm talking about. It's right here. I'm sorry. Oh, thank you. It's sorry, defining and achieving practice growth at the top of the hour. We will see you back then. And thank you so much for staying with us today.